Here we go. We should be live. How are you guys doing? Happy Sunday. Sorry, I was a few minutes late. Let's get to the question here. How are you guys doing? Happy Sunday, I was saying. Bit late. I just got back to the gym, from the gym. And yeah, we are ready to go. Maybe I should change these to that. It's better. I like that. It's too dark in the background. All right. How you guys doing? So today we are gonna stay up. First of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. And today we're gonna stay up for about an hour and 10 minutes. And as usual, if you want your question to be answered first, use the super chat. And that way I'll get to your question first, and you also support the channel and help with the live stream and all of that. So let's get to the questions, which I see they're not mirroring correctly here. So let me reopen the live stream and see if YouTube stopped being a bee. All right. So we can start with the first question. I'll literally just get the first one. So we give people time to get here. Braxel, I bought the West Audio Pandora. It should arrive tomorrow. Thanks to you and Paul at Studio Animals. Bought it. I'm happy because you will absolutely freaking love it. I was just talking about it with Lawrence. Shout out to Lawrence and all the bastards. This is an inside thing. How good it is. Lawrence is a great engineer as well. He was asking me about a couple of West Audio pieces, and I told him that I've been using Pandora since day one. Is permanently at this point plugged into my 2-bus chain, and of course if I don't use it I'll just bypass it. Hard bypass, easy to go, and it's absolutely fucking amazing. It is really great. So is the IGS, but they are, even though they're both 2 VCA multi-band compressor, they're very not very different. They are different enough. So you're gonna love it. Toshiko, thank you and welcome back. It's always awesome to see you here on the live stream. Always great support. You're the absolute best. Everybody say hi to Toshiko, because he's always here, always supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Let me get to your question. Sorry, guys. Dave, I want to ask you about latency in the box. I use Logic, which I don't know that well, so I'll try. What to do for nearly zero latency for mixing, and does latency happen during bouncing too? Okay, so zero latency for mixing. Do you mean hardware inserts? Because if you mean hardware inserts, I'm not sure how Logic works. In Pro Tools, you gotta put it manually and calculate the round trip ADDA. Unfortunately, I don't know how Logic works. I know Cubase and Nuendo have a pin function that calculates the round trip automatically. Pro Tools doesn't. I'm not sure about Logic. If you mean latency in general, for mixing, you can avoid latency, right? Because every time you insert a plugin, the DAW auto compensate for it, so you will have latency. I'm not sure how that affects you though. The only way latency affects you while mixing, it's literally the time where you press the bar to press playback and when the playback actually starts. So that's the actual latency that you have while mixing. So it shouldn't really affect you that much. I have latency, like high latency, when I do mastering, and it's normal because of that, because mastering plugins are usually really heavy and they have a lot of latency. But it doesn't affect you. So the only thing that I can think of, if you're asking me about the the hardware insert. And please feel free to fill in the gaps if I'm not understanding something. But yeah, that's the only latency that you have to worry about. Any other latency is automatically compensated by any DAW at this point. All right, we have another super chat donation question first. Marcus Handling, thank you again. Thank you so much for the support. What is a major thing you learned or a mistake you realized when you were making later in your career that made a significant change in your mixes? Overprocessing for sure, and monitor is everything. So I think I mentioned this before. I think many engineers' career and learning curve is not like this. It's not linear from I suck to I am good, but it's kind of jagged. It goes like this. And if you are learning correctly, it will still go up, but there will be bumps and dips like this, and it will slowly go up. That's normal, right? And what happens is when you start, you're all instinct and ears, right? You don't know technical things unless you go to school or you shadow somebody. So you turn knobs until it sounds good, and you get, if you have skills and taste, good results, good enough. And then you start learning things, right? Technical things, and you're not really digesting it because it takes time and experience to digest the technical things and understand how to apply them while you're mixing to make the mix better. So what happens, and what happened to me, and I think to many, one of the biggest mistakes that you do at the beginning is you tend to overprocess. You learn something new. Let's say you learn parallel compression, right, or paralleling in general, and then you feel like, oh, now I know this new technique, I have to apply it. But you don't really understand what is it that you want from that parallel channel, right? And this is just an example. So you just open it, you do something, and you gotta pay attention not to fool yourself. Like one of the biggest mistakes is not level matching. So you open a parallel, whatever it is, parallel saturation, parallel compression, it gets louder a little bit, and you think it's better, right? And so you start doing these things, and when you really didn't fully understand and digest all these new techniques and how to apply them and what they are used for and what you personally want from them, and so you tend to overprocess things. And it's not that at the end of the day, the mixes still turn out okay. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here probably doing this for a living. But you waste a lot. I wasted a lot of time, and many times I realized the next day I reopened the mix that I closed the night before. I was like, why did I do this? This whole crock of thing, and it doesn't really sound better, right? So overprocessing is definitely one lesson that I learned the hard way. And the second thing is monitoring. Monitoring is everything. This is something that when you don't have a monitoring system that is accurate and you can trust, you're spinning your wheels, right? And you think, oh my God, I suck so much, which maybe you do, not you, like you, hypothetical you, but maybe not. Maybe you actually do know what to do and you have a good ear. It's just what you hear in the studio. You can't trust what you hear in your studio, so you go listen to your mix outside, and it's awful. And it might not be you. It might be because your monitoring system is lying to you, which is so common, right? And so I wish I understood really the importance of monitoring way before and gave monitoring much more attention and prioritize investing in monitoring in a room earlier than I did, because I would have saved myself a lot of time. I always give this example. When I was in Europe, I had the studio, I had a different brand of speakers, and I had 3 different pairs because everybody was using those speakers, and I was like, oh, I have to use them too because everybody loves them. And I never clicked with those particular monitors, and I was blaming myself. I was saying like, no, I suck, right? So I kind of elbow my way through mixes because I didn't want to change the monitors because I thought it was me and not the monitors. Well, one day I switched to a different pair of monitors, and like, dang, it wasn't me. So those two things are definitely the two I wish I knew before things. Thank you again, Marcus, for the super chat, guys. Again, if you want your question to be answered first, use the super chat. Your question will pop up, and I will get to it first. And yeah, let's get to whatever we can pick from here. Chris Dover, why is 500 series more popular? Are there any hardware units you'd like to see in 500 series? Why isn't 500 series more popular? I think it's pretty popular. I mean, pretty much almost all the major companies, and if you look at the sale numbers, 500 series is extremely popular. I'm not sure why you think it's not more popular. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, yes, it could be more popular, I guess, but it's pretty darn popular. I think maybe some people still don't trust, I want to say, or don't invest into 500 and prefer 19-inch racks. It's because, I don't know, they don't know the format well enough, you know. At the beginning, when API made the 500 series available for everybody as a framework, there were indeed problems with power supplies, right? Because that's how the VPI alliance started, right? So every module, every rack, at that point, if you wanted to be included in the VPI is called? I don't remember, but the certification the API gives to modules, you needed to fit in certain standards, right? Because at the beginning, everybody started making 500 series, and so the power supply were inadequate, not enough power, not enough shielding, and so some modules that draw a lot of current, like preamps in particular, weren't working properly. Also, 500 series does have slightly less headroom than 19 inches racks. Some modules do, right? For example, I always make the example, the Mag EQ, EQ4 Mastering Edition, the rack has more headroom than the 500 series, also has a one more available frequency for the airband, things like this. But at the same time, the 500 series is an extremely versatile format because it's so easy to swap models, because you save, because whenever you buy a compressor, an EQ, or a saturator, you don't pay for the power supply because the power supply is your rack. So I think it's pretty popular, you know. But yeah, the people who don't use it, they don't want to use it, maybe that's why. But in today's market, 500 series is absolutely amazing, and there's no worry about any, you know, shortcoming on using the format. I use it all the time. I'm gonna take a sip of water and go back to the questions. You recommend best engineer in YouTube. Thank you so much. Okay, Logic has the ping too. So yeah. So Toshiko, if that's what you were asking about the latency, in insert, Logic has a ping function as well. I don't know Logic, or I would be telling you how to do it, but at this point, search the ping function and you will be able to input and automatically compensate for the hardware insert when mixing. No, Braxel, there's no Bella today. Today, Bella is with her mom, spending the day with her. But I'll bring you guys salutes to her. I was just talking to her earlier. Have you tried the Cranbourne Carnaby HE2 harmonic EQ? No, I didn't. This question pops up a lot. Understandably, because, you know, we usually do all the reviews and all the hardware here. But no, I didn't. We never connected really officially with the company. We saw each other at NAMM a couple of times, but I never had the chance to try it. I know a lot of people that I respect in the industry that like it, so, you know, I'm completely, totally open to do a review of the unit. Whenever you guys want me to do a review on a unit, and or a piece of software, for what matters, and you don't see it on the channel, always, you know, contact the company. The company usually make it happen. They contact me, and we can get it done. But no, I don't. I never actually tried it myself. Let's see. Prod by Big Clap. Hi David, when I'm mastering, especially in the limiting stage, my beat overcomes my vocal, especially when there are a lot of instrument playing. Do you know how I can fix that? So, if I understand the question correctly, you go to limit and bring up the volume, and your vocal sinks in the music and the instruments come out too much. So usually this happens when, so imagine that, right? What are you doing when you're limiting? You're pushing up the low level information, right? You're limiting the tall peaks, and you're bringing, like, by compensating and having more headroom, you bring up the low level information. So if the low level information that you bring up ends up sinking your vocal, there's two reasons. One, your mix is unbalanced to begin with. Two, you're limiting way too much. That's probably the cause, to be completely honest. When you limit past 4 dB, that's usually you're limiting too much. And third, let's say I assume that your vocal is mostly mono. You will have stereo effects and all that, but it's mostly mono. What happens when you limit, usually, and you limit a lot, is the side information comes up, right? What is in the stereo, because what you limit is kick and snare, bass and vocals, everything that is in the mid channel. That's the most energy in every mix. That's the most energy, right? So you're mostly limiting the mid channel. That means that when you turn the volume up, the mid channel gets pushed down, and all the effects, everything that is on the sides, come out. If that's too much compared to the mix, that's why I'm guessing you're limiting too much. What's happening is this. Everything that is on the side is going to bury your vocals. So my advice is don't limit that much, or, well, don't master your own stuff. But if you have to, you need to try to compensate for it, which is an absolute freaking nightmare. That's why mastering is not just slapping a couple of limiters on your mix, because shit like this happens, right? I said this before many times. Even if you have the perfect mix, utopia, right? Nothing to be touched. The process of bringing it up to level, commercial level, will change that balance. So a good mastering engineer that doesn't have to do anything to your mix to correct it, to fix things, still have the tough job of bringing it up to commercial level while maintaining that balance that was the perfect mix, right? So that is a big task to begin with. And yeah, things like this happens. And how you perceive the whole spectrum changes when you bring up to level. Hold on a second, guys. Here we go. All right, next question. And again, if you want your question to be answered first, use the super chat. One of our members, what's his name? AH. Hey Dave, best method for taming high end without it going flat in mastering. I'm not sure what you mean with flat. Taming high end, it depends. If it's just too loud, your best bet is a multiband compressor, right? Or a dynamic EQ. And that way you just tame it, so to speak, which means you lower the level of it only when it exceeds a certain threshold. And actually, I would say right now there is one of my favorite plugins that is by Tokyo Dome Lab, and it's called Arbiter. So any dynamic EQ, any multiband compressor works on a threshold, nominal level based, right? Even if you take a compressor that it has an RMS detector still is, it works on level exceeding the threshold. Arbiter, which is this plugin by Tokeno Lab, works differently. In layman terms, works by it looks the same, like a dynamic EQ. Okay, so this is the frequency, offending frequency that you need to tame. But again, if you need to tame it all, like if it's a static issue, just EQ it out. If it's a dynamic issue, you use a multiband compressor or a dynamic EQ. If it's more complex than that, which is usually the case, that's why this plugin is so great. This plugin works and in this way. So the frequency range that you want to affect, let's say dynamically reduce it, it doesn't reduce it when that range exceeds the threshold, but when that range it reduces it in relationship to everything else. So when that range becomes too loud compared to the rest of the spectrum, which is mostly how we perceive the offending frequencies, right? Imagine, an S on a vocal. If it's inside the music and everything, that usually goes. But if it's isolated or there's nothing around it, then it feels a lot louder. That's how Arbiter works. So, and it's a plugin that you can use in mastering. I actually use it myself in mastering. So definitely that's something that I would try. Otherwise, if it's a really bad problem, and I say this meaning you should use these processors as last resort, something like Suit or Spiff or any spectral plugin, which right now I feel everybody throw them everywhere, and I don't understand why it doesn't seem to be apparent for people that they do have side effects, they do have artifacts, which are mitigated greatly by using higher oversampling, and the high quality settings, but they still have it. So those things should be left as last resort. If you can get away with simple things, volume automation, which is a compressor, a dynamic EQ, multiband compressor, a fader writing, or an EQ automation, always go for the simple solution and go to the complicated stuff when that doesn't work. Another plugin that I love for harshness and taming top end without sucking the life out of it is Spectral. It's called Spectral. Is a module on Ozone. Spectral Shaper. That is also great. That is also really great. Have you tried? Okay, so thank you for all you do. Hi, David. Love your channel and have learned so much from you. Is there a time where band compressing is better than dynamic EQ or vice versa? Not really. They are, to be completely honest, they are fairly interchangeable, right? There's not much that changes between a dynamic EQ and a multiband compressor. Of course, there's a lot that change on paper, but in use, there's not night and day. The way I see it and the way I differentiate the use of them is this. Dynamic EQ when I want clean, when I want precise, and surgical. I use multiband compressor when I want to control in a much broader way. So the three bands, right? So let's take a look at this multiband compressor. Got three bands. While usually with the dynamic and they are very wide. You got two crossovers. They cover low, mids, highs, like a broad bell, right? While the dynamic EQ, which usually is a focus on a resonant, on a hard consonance, on something like that. So, because of this, multiband compressor is not just for a not as clinical and surgical control, but it's also for tone shaping. Because with a multiband compressor, you can also easily reshape the overall tone of a track, right? Just with the makeup gain. Think about it. I actually just finished a master yesterday. I was using the Pandora, And this is actually what I did. It was just a little bit of compression on the low end, just one dB and a half, little bit on the top, but the mid range was coming out of this mix a little too much. And so with the mid band, I compressed it a good 3 dB, 3.5, maybe even 4, but I did not compensate for it. So the mix comes out from the multiband a little scooped with a little smiley face, and that worked perfectly, right? So this is a good example of using multiband compressor for tone shaping purposes as opposed to the dynamic EQ, which is more clinical. Also, the multiband compressor have crossover all the time, and so the material somehow changes slightly just by inserting a multiband compressor. The dynamic EQ does not. All right. We have a ton of questions that for some reason just updated on my phone. And again, guys, use the super chat if you want me to get to the question first. Holy cow. There's like a gazillion questions. I will not be able to get to all of them. All right. Members first. Peacock. What's up? Just dropping by since I'm here. Stam is coming with a CL1B rack version. I'm guessing you will get one. I know I am. I actually consulted with Josh on that unit. So on the new upcoming CL1B by Stam, I kind of helped out with the. If you saw the faceplate, it's got a little extra options on it, like the mix knob and and a couple of other things. I kind of help him out deciding what to put in there. He asked me to help, so yeah, it's gonna be an absolutely great unit. I can't wait. I don't know when it's gonna come out, but it's gonna come out at some point. All right, Toshiko again. I know plugins cause latency, and we have low latency mode in Logic, but if we do that, or in plugins that have low latency mode, does it reduce the quality? Sorry, no. It does not use. So it does absolutely. If you lose low latency mode, Pro Tools has low latency mode as well. It doesn't reduce quality at all, unless you're talking about the plugin itself, right? So if the plugin itself has a low latency mode, yes, that will reduce the computing power that it uses. So it is very much like oversampling. Oversampling will add more latency because it uses more CPU, and so it adds more latency. Or for example, linear phase EQs, right? So it will most likely reduce the quality, and or it will actually in some cases change the function slightly. For example, Pro Q3 has zero latency and then linear phase, right, with all the options. Zero latency will not be a linear phase anymore. It will be a normal EQ. So yeah, it will somehow in some cases reduce the quality. How much is to be seen, especially if you're working a higher sample rate. It shouldn't affect that much. But if you're talking about the DAW low latency mode, that's usually for recording, and it has nothing to do with latency when you're mixing or the plugins. It's just when you do overdubs and stuff. But that we go into discussing buffer size and all the other things. All right. Are you using a separate mic for that light that reacts to your voice in the background? All right. If I had a penny for every single person that asked me about these lights, I would be a freaking millionaire. So I'll say it again, even though I answered many times. No, I'm not using another microphone. They have a little microphone in front. But you can buy them. They don't exist. They never existed, unfortunately, because they are cool, I know. But these were a startup company that never started. So I was one of the probably 10 people in the world to get them. And that they're not available. You can't find them. That's it. Please don't ask me anymore. Because everybody asks. All right. Another member, RG. David, what is one common thing you come across when listening to mixes that tells you is an amateur mix? That's a really good question. And, since I do consultations, that's kind of a pattern very, very often. usually the most common things are two, I want to say. These more than anything else. Messed up low end and poor vocal mixing and or production. Those are the two things that are so very common, and usually the low end is either way too much or too little. It's actually more common to have too little than too much. To my surprise as well, but it makes sense because usually people have people in home studios, either they have a Nolan, which is common, but apparently there's even more common they have a bump, or they mix on headphones. That's another telltale sign. And so what they do, they compensate for what they can hear by because they hear so much low end, and especially if you have like the speakers attached to the wall and they're like small speakers, they tend to blow up and inflate the low end and make it sound like there's more than it actually is. So they kind of tend to cut the low end or diminish the low end, and the mix come out skinny. And the other thing is vocals. Vocals that are dynamically all over the place. The most common thing is lack of real vocal production, and just basic effect, and just usually vocals that are not steady, that are not planted, that are not intelligible enough, or they are 5 dB too loud than everything else. Those are the most common things. All right, let's see another one of our members. By the way, hello to all the members and thank you for support. Chill mode. If most of the stuff someone uses is IDB, I don't know what that is. Is it true worth it looking for outboard if you can't afford a more higher end outboard gear? I am so confused with this, man. Probably English is not a first language, so I think this most of the stuff someone uses in the box. You mean it's worth looking for outboard gear if you can afford a more higher end. So I said this before. I understand the question. Like, if you don't have that much money and I'm in the box, can I get a cheaper outboard? I don't think at this point is worth it. With that said, I said it before. It depends what is affordable for you, right? If you buy an EQ, if you have to buy an EQ that is like $400, an analog EQ that is $300, $400, most likely is not worth it, right? But it all depends what's expensive for you. Like I said many times, like a distressor, it's not expensive for me. It's $1,500 for one, compressor. It's fairly cheap, like especially compared to other things, right? So it all depends. But let's say besides some of the drummer things, like the 1970 series and maybe a couple more like FMR, if you don't have the budget for outboard, just don't go out, because the problem with going outboard, it's not only the outboard, is you need the converters too, you need the cables, you need probably a patch bay, so the whole bunch of things. By the way, shout out, we have officially now the Wolf Audio Pro Patch in the house, and we're gonna do the video review of that thing because it's absolutely insane. As soon as I get the go and the software is ready, we're gonna do that. Another one of our members, HB Studio, is that read correctly? Because my phone is glaring. Sorry, I'm not blind, I promise. Hey David, Reaper versus Pro Tools are as export quality. There's no difference whatsoever. Trust me. If you do a test correctly, without any variables, right? Take away plugins, take away pan law, take away all the human error in setting up the test, DAWs don't have sound. It's been proven many times, and I promise you there's no difference. All right, Fluffy Pants Studio. That's such a cool name. Hi Dave, you are not. I know you're not a fan of AI generated music, but if AI generated music reaches CD quality with clean individual tracks, would you mix it if a client asked, or is the AI source a deal breaker? To be honest, I don't care. I mean, if you got the budget, I'll mix whatever. I mean, in past, I mix things that were probably a lot worse sounding and badly produced than what could AI music could be. But it's not my music, you know. I don't have anything. I mean, yes, I do have something ethically against AI generators, but it's not at an individual level, right? It's the machine that I'm against, right? The labels misusing the AI to cut off artists, to cut off producers, to cut off engineers, to cut off all that. But let me expand on this. I'm always for technology and for improvement and progress if yields to a better result. I'm against it when we as humankind, we use technology out of laziness, and it doesn't get us to a greater results. It gets us to a subpar results that we settle for because we rather work less but have something shittier than work more but have something great. That I will never accept it as a concept. You know, it just I think especially with arts, but everything else. I mean, I apply this to everything I do. Strive for greatness, and I am okay when technology takes away the chores, which takes away, like, think of the calculator, right? It's fine because we use calculators or computers to achieve greater goals. That's fine. But when we lower the bar because of technology and we use technology to say, like, you know what? I don't feel like it. This is good enough. Well, then fuck you. I don't like that. I will never like that. I will never support that. But I'll mix whatever. I don't care if, someone made a track with AI and they want it mixed. It's not my music at the end of the day. Just like it's not my music, whatever project I do, you know? So it's not up to me to say if it's good, not good. I can give advice and offer my help if I'm asked to, but yeah, it's not my music. All right, guys, if you want we still have a lot of questions. If you want your question answer first, use the super chat. We have about 30 minutes left. Another one of our members. Shout out to all members. Autoclave Beats. Hi, David. What technique would you use to make program drums wide if you can't use panning? Why can't you use panning? um, Regardless, whatever. If you want to make drums, program drums wide, well, then you use ambience. You use invisible ambience. You know. When we talk about this a lot of times in many of my mixing courses and many of, like, Q&As. You can use things like the 8210, the box algorithm, the room algorithm, the ambience algorithm. The LX480 has an ambience algorithm that works well for that. There's a new for me, plugins by D16 is called Space Rack. That is literally a positioning plugin. You can use that. You can use things like Dr. MS, which creates new stereo information for the mono channel. You gotta be very, very, very careful with that on transient material because it's gonna flam. It's gonna start doing this if you exaggerate. But yeah, ambience are your tool. I don't know why you couldn't use penning though. Shout out to Joe Zaza Sin 7, another one of our members. Let me refresh this to refresh all the questions and stuff. Old home recording. Welcome back to another of our members here. Jerry Romero. I'm curious to what happened between you and Plugin Alliance. You always trash them. Bad deal happened. When did you hear me trash them? I never trashed them because, just because I don't. First of all, I don't use much that they have. I don't know why you think I trashed them. I just put maybe I didn't release that yet. the best EQ of the year for the music award, there's the black box EQ too. I don't trash them. I don't trash them. I just personally don't use their plugin that much. I probably use 3 of them. That's it. Um, and nothing happened. Um, there was an episode at some point with, I think, the old owner that he didn't like the fact that I said that their master desk plugin wasn't that great. Didn't say it sucked. Didn't say anything. Just said like I just said like they have better things, and he was mad at it, being at 12 years old and saying that he would ruin my career. I'm like, I'm still waiting. But other than that, I'm pretty indifferent simply because I don't use many other plugins. The ones I use, I don't have any issues with the company or the plugins that I use. I just don't use many of them. All right, Sean, wait, don't forget, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you. Yeah, guys, like the live stream. If you want to support that, use the super chat. If you have a question, share it. It helps the live stream. It helps me being able to do this live stream for you, of course. What's your favorite compressor to track with? I would say, generally speaking, the distressor. Vocals, if it's a female, probably the 670. Which, you might say, yeah, no shit, right? But yeah, generally speaking, the distressor. The distressor is one of my favorite for tracking for sure. And it's so freaking versatile, That's like, it goes well with, so many things. And especially when I don't know what I'm going to track or who I'm going to track, that is definitely something that, it's kind of foolproof. You're never going to run into something that the distressor can't handle, right? Ryan Kasum, thank you so much. We have another super chat. Thank you again for the support. Your question goes first. Would master plan or the God particle be a good pickup for someone new, or could it limit my growth not learning proper mix and mastering process chains? That is an amazing question. And because you're asking this question, I say no. No meaning it would not stunt your growth. Why? Because you already know, without me replying to you, that these are all-in-one, under-the-hood type of plugins, right? And so, like we said before about the technology, you can use them if they make whatever sounds good, right? We all agree on that. And you can use it if you find that it speeds up your workflow and you just achieve the sound that you want, right? And many times these plugins are so good, both of them, that they could be a first choice. But because you are curious and because you want to grow and know, you will not settle, you will not sit there and say, oh, now that I have this, I don't care about learning. It's in your nature because you asked me this question. So I would say grab one of them. I love Master Plan. And that will actually give you a benchmark, right? It will give you a reference point. And now you can go ahead and see if with tools, and I have plenty of literature here on the channel for you to learn and try to match or excel what can you achieve with that plugin. So use it in this way, right? So use it like, oh, this sounds good. Let's see if I can do better. Of course, don't do it while you're mixing for a client or mastering for a client. But, I always say, like, plan your study time when you're not actively working on a mix. But yeah, definitely. I love both plugins. I think both plugins are worth. I lean towards the master plan a little bit because it sounds really great to me. And but yeah, no, they won't. As long as you still have the will to learn, they will not, because you will use it in that way. You will use it to have a reference point and see if you can do better. Do you know any tricks to throw the bass that is 100% mono into the sides and not to be only there and not in mid, like in the center channel. Yes, there's many plugins that can do that. You just need to pay attention with stereoizing bass. There's not a trick. Like the trick is creating stereo information from a mono source. And you usually do this with mono to stereo modulation effects, which there's one free that is amazing that you can do. It is a Uber mod by Valhalla. There is my personal favorite, which is TC Electronic 1210. And there is Stereoizer by Nugan. But basically, you can do this with any short ambient reverb and or a mono to stereo chorus or flanger for bass, or ensemble plugin, which every DAW has stock. You just need to understand that you can stereoize the sub range, and also if you do this in parallel, which you will have to, you don't do this stuff on a mono bass in insert, you parallel it. If you are going to cut anything with an EQ, you need to use a linear phase EQ on the parallel channel, because otherwise you're running in phase issues. So it's easy, but it's not. You gotta know what you do. Next question again, guys. If you want your question first, use the super chat, because we are running out of time today. Pharaoh official. At which value would you suggest to gain stage your mix at the VU meter before applying hardware modeling plugins in the mastering session? All of this is wrong, my friend. So, one, there's no level, right? The level is whatever, the level of your mix doesn't matter. It only matters that A, you don't clip, B, you don't use a limiter on your 2-bus not to clip, and the level of your mix is only relative if you use hardware. Even plugins that are analog emulations, they just give you a starting point, save point in which they are supposed to sound at their best, which is usually minus 18 dB. But many plugins, even the ones that are emulation of analog, they don't really change that much or at all, the level. So don't focus too much on this stuff, because in the digital realm, if you're not going out and use it outboard, the numbers of levels, they really mean very little. But if you want to be safe, just stay around minus 12 dB and you're good with anything that you can possibly have in the box. But they're just numbers, like really. Until you go out of the box, don't worry. It doesn't change much, if at all. Did you build your own studio or was it already built? No, I built it. My mixing room was built by Dave Bass, which is a renowned studio guy here in LA. If you had to choose between the SSL Bus Plus versus West Audio, which would you choose? I saw your video, but I believe you kind of said both. Gun to the head, I would pick the West Audio. I use the West Audio on my 2-bus, basically 7 out of 10 mixes. I use it a lot in mastering as well. And I use the SSL Bus Plus on drums. So, there's that. They are both great. I repeat what I said in the video. They are both amazing. I just give, for 2-bus duties, I just give the West Audio a little bit of an edge, because I don't know, it never fails. It feels a little better to me, besides the automation and the THD on the West Audio sounds really freaking awesome. It sounds awesome. Actually, I I like the Pandora THD as well, and sometimes I use just that because the THD on the Pandora is tuned specifically for each band as opposed to be broadband. So yeah, I especially now that the West Audio has the cable, the mod cable to make it to switch between feed forward and feed back, which was the only thing besides the dynamic EQ on the Bus Plus that the NG was missing. But with that said, the Bus Plus is great. There's a lot of people that use it on the 2 bus with success. I personally, if I again gun to the head, I would pick the NG, but I also have both, so I'm kind of a hypocrite in that sense because they are both great. Um, Andre as Arzati in a rap song, before I take it to the master. How far back should the voice be behind the 2 tracks, or should put them in equal levels? That nobody can answer this. Nobody can answer this because first of all, 5 mixing engineers will mix the vocal at different levels, so it's a matter of taste. And there's not a level there's not a level. Also, we talked also about the fact of mixing a vocal on a 2 tracks. That's always a compromise. So the fact that you're having troubles probably finding the level, it's because that's not how you mix. You shouldn't mix on a 2 track. Although I said that is this bad practice is accepted nowadays because a lot of people do, but there's not a really answer for that. It's just, it depends on your taste. It depends on the track. And also, the vocals shouldn't be at the same level all the time. If there's one thing that you should fade a writing, that's the vocals. I mean, there are all the other elements in the mix, but if there's one thing and you don't have the multi-tracks, you just have the beat, at least the one thing you can automate is the vocals. So vocals shouldn't be a set and forget thing ever. So, have you checked out the new soft tube echoes? Yeah, of course I did. I had it before it came out. It's amazing. There's other things that soft tube has. I have them, and they're awesome. I don't think soft tube can do a bad plugin. It's just, soft tube can do wrong. Echoes is absolutely awesome, and the other plugins in that same line and with the same GUI style, which I really love, are going to be like, they are awesome. They are not available to the public, but get ready because you are gonna want them. Like there's one in particular that are like, oh my god, that is like my new go-to. Again, we have about 10-15 minutes. If you want your question answer first, use the super chat, guys. Old home recording, one of our members, we answer member question first. Hello, certain plugin cannot yet imitate the dynamic, harmonic, and electronic elements of analog devices. Why don't companies make box-shaped analog drives staged connected with plugins? That's West Audio. What you're talking, and the APB by MacDSP, that's exactly what you're describing. But that's analog. It's just digitally controlled analog. But APB by MacDSP is literally what you're describing, right? So the APB by MacDSP is this box, 1 rack, 16 channels of analog, and the plugin controls where these analog components, what analog components gets engaged, and how they operate based on the plugin, so to speak, that you open. That is exactly what the MacDSP APB is. Is the Tammy, is there an industry standard workflow for mixing, or is just a creative process? There's no industry standard. There are common practices that you see many engineers using, like color coding or busing and grouping and stuff like that. But yeah, there's absolutely not a standard workflow or an industry standard. Fabric compressor style for drum bus: VCA, opto, or VCA. Always, always been. My 2 drum compressors are Fatso, Empirical Labs, and SSL Bus Plus. And before the SSL Bus Plus was the Dion, so still, VCA style. Definitely VCA. I can go for FAT sometimes. Well, I go for FAT for parallel things. I'm talking about drum bus. For parallel things or single channels like kick, snare, toms, then and very common I'm using I'm still using SSL channels for all of them as a main compressor, so still VCA, but I can of course throw in, an 1176 on him. That's why I have four of them right now, four 1176s. So fat is always there. Is also there, especially if I want to smash something in parallel. But definitely VCA. I'm not a big fan of Opto. The Gain Lab Governor just is the Opto compressor that changed my feelings towards Optos because I don't really like Optos that much. You can see my collection. It's all VCA, Varimu, and FET. But the Governor by Empirical, well, it's not Empirical, Gain Lab, it's a different beast. It made me love Optos, but it not really. It just made me love that one in particular because it's so good. Have you ever used Vice plugins? Are you new? Not only I did the official presentation for SoftTube of the Vice plugins, but I have a full mixing course on the DS1 MK3. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. I have a PreSonus Fire Studio project for my outboard. I know it's not the best for today. What I can buy better? PreSonus Fire Studio. Is that an interface? If it's an interface, no, I'm pretty sure it's not an interface. I don't know what the Fire Studio is. If it's an interface you want to upgrade, I will go to Motu. If it's not an interface, let me know what it is. I'll try. How can I get analog mix using Tokyo TDR plugins? I want my song to sound purely analog, trying to avoid digital signal. Well, if you want your mixes to to sound purely analog, you gotta go analog. Why do you think we have this? Why do you think we have all that? There's only so much you can do. If you want that sound, you gotta get those machines. How far can you get with just basic audio interface and Audio Technica headphones at a small home studio? I think you can go pretty far. If you got the skills, you got the time, because of course there's going to be a lot of trips to the car and a lot of checking your stuff on different media, and as long as you're not recording a band, you can go pretty far. It all depends what kind of music you're mixing. And if it's computer-based music, and you got a lot of samples or EDM or stuff like that, or maybe trap, which is like a beat and a vocal, you can go pretty far. There's engineers out there that chart right now that they don't have that much more, so you can go pretty far. It's just like a matter of how skilled you are. I don't know what kind of Audio Technica headphones you have, but if that's your thing, maybe think about upgrading the headphones. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where you're mixing on. No, Kin, Heartbreak, it's okay. I mean, I don't assume everybody knows my entire career, so don't worry about it. But yeah, definitely check that course. That course is actually one of the most famous course, and you can access it and all the others if you're a channel member, by the way. And there should be at least part one of that course. At least one part of that is available for free on the channel. What time is it? All right, let's do 10 minutes left from now. So if you have a question that you want me to answer, first use the super chat. Is it worth it to buy hardware just for vocal chain as preamp compressor? Because I have to mic Aventon C12, which is a great mic. Yeah, of course it is. Of course, is it worth it? I mean, everything that makes your result better is worth it, right? Of course, there's a limit because if you're not a professional engineer, well, then making the money back, you're not making money mixing music. You're mixing because you're trying to save money. So for people who don't do this for a living, the tools are not an investment. They are an expense. For us, it's an investment. But definitely worth it, especially because vocals is arguably the most important thing in a song. So 100% is worth it. And is actually a good mindset to have your front end really good quality because that's where everything starts, right? Uh, I think Brandon Watkins, this is my first time watching live chat. You are a true professional. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I'm happy you're enjoying the stream. All right, let's see. Probably we're gonna have last question or last couple of questions. Um, that's a good question, Luli. Are you willing to sacrifice a little bit of the technical aspect of a mix for the artistic side? And do you think that the art of mixing is getting lost? So first part of the question, yes, 100%, absolutely, absolutely. I will sacrifice, even not just a little, but a lot. If you know, it's because it's always like subjective, like technical things, right? There are definitely rules and there are definitely technical standards, but will I break the standard or what is considered technically correct if we think it's cool? Like, oh my god, these guitars, it would be cool if they were like way too loud in this part. Yeah, of course, absolutely. I think that's a big part of being an artist mixing engineer as opposed to a Pro Tools operator. That's literally the difference between selling not your technical abilities but your taste and your skills and your art, right? You're not paid for your time. You're paid for the added value that you give as an engineer. And for the second part of the question, do you think the art of mixing is getting lost? I think yes, we all know this, and it's getting lost because unfortunately, um, most people. So when the digital era came in and made the studio setups available for pretty much everything for a few bucks, two things happened. One was really good and one was really bad. One, it gave all the people in the world basically the possibility to express themselves and make music and do music. This is a good thing. This is also the bad thing. Because a lot of people have no business doing music or doing mixing or being in the music in any shape or form. They now can and they do. Right? So unfortunately those people, which are the vast majority, they don't care about greatness, they don't care about uh it's all the crowd that said details don't matter, right? And then they come to my channel and ask why my mix doesn't sound like the pros, because details matter. But those people tend to settle for it's good enough, right? And I don't want to work it too much. Nobody's gonna hear the difference. That's why it's getting lost. But this is not just in mixing; it's in every field. People prefer convenience to quality, convenience and ease of use, and low effort to greatness, which it's in one hand is bad, but on the other hand is I welcome it because then people like me and my colleagues who are instead delivering great things, you're hear even more difference. I always give this example: just because there's a million Prius on the street, Lamborghini doesn't stop making supercars, right? So they can keep coming. All right. Last question. If there's one last super chat, I'll give you a minute to use it. So your question go first, and if not, we are gonna pick one random. Um, mm, let me see. I want to try to pick a good one for last as the last one. Uh, 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 That's it. How often do you have to leave the sweet spot to dial something in most fixed chains? Um, I'm not sure. What do you mean the sweet spot, like where I sit? Not sure. You mean for a plugin or a piece of hardware? I mean, the sweet spot is generally besides some specific units, like I can think of, like for example the HG2 or even the 542s. Separators usually have a more sensitive sweet spot, meaning if you go past that or if you fall short on it, they sound like bad. Um, it's most high-end gear have a pretty wide range, like an EQ and a compressor. There's not really a sweet spot where you gotta pay attention not to go out of it, otherwise is a mess. Now consoles, it's different. Consoles is different, like the SSL 4K, it sounds out best when it's pushed. 9K, not that much. API, everything is good until it's not anymore. So a console is a much more complicated thing. Um, and that's it, I think, for today. That's it. I'm mixing the box and was analog flavor mix was consolation. That's it. That's it. Leaving when you sit, when you adjust hardware in a rack. Not ever, almost ever, because I keep all my rack at arm's reach. That's why it's not pushed to the walls to the side. That is why it's so close to me. I hate leaving the listen sweet spot, if that's what you mean. I absolutely freaking hate leaving the sweet spot, and so I keep all my gear at reach. Yeah, and that's it for today. Oh, we have a last minute super chat. AA Deal Music. We'll end the live stream with this one, guys. Thank you for the super chat. What do you think about AI mastering like Lander? Tips for clear low end in a mix. I never heard a mastering AI service that is, to be honest, good. I know this is not politically correct, but I'm just being honest. It's no different than a preset. I heard Ozone presets being better than online mastering services. That's it. I have to keep it real, And as for tips for cleaner low end in the mix, it's always the same tip. Low end is monitoring. If you can't hear it, you can't mix it. I can tell you, pay attention to the low mids and clean up the instruments that don't have any reason to have a lot of but it's all bullshit. It's all these are all things that apply to specific situations that you may or may not encounter in your mix. The only universal advice that works for everything is you can't mix what you can't hear. And the low end, unfortunately, requires big ass monitors, a big ass room, treated well. That's it. The closest thing to this is to get a very, very good pair of headphones, and then get used to it over time. And that's the closest thing that you can get. And you will still have to compromise a little bit, because again, there's just a matter of like air moving, because especially the low end, we don't really hear it, we feel it, right? The vibrations. Like me and many others and many other engineers, they touch their desk, they feel their desk and how it vibrates to assess the low end. We have a preset volume, and then we know that our desk vibrates in a certain way. So the cleaner low end, you will be able to have a cleaner low end when you can hear your low end properly. And one thing that people overlook, it's not a matter of how low your speakers go, which on paper they all go low a lot more than what they actually do in reality, but it's how distortion free they go that low, because that's where you can gauge your low end right correctly, and then you will be able to mix it. But yeah, guys, that is it for today. Thank you again for joining the live stream. We are gonna be back here next Sunday, same time, 2:30. So the new live stream will be posted on the channel right after this one, so you can save it. You can click the notification so you don't forget. Thank you everybody who supported the channel, all the members, all the super chat users here, and I hope you guys have a good Sunday, and I'll see you next time.